You know, after releasing so many Pokemon games for 20 years, it's no wonder that the staff felt like taking a vacation. Not from making games, of course, because giving their cash cow a rest is not the Game Freak way. No, they took the Pokemon series to the sunny shores of Hawaii with the Alola region in Pokemon Sun and Moon. Quite an inspired location that made a big change from the very urban settings we've seen to date, and one that set these games apart.
Yes, but while this tropical location certainly has a bunch of new Pokemon to discover, are these creatures any good? That's our operating question as we rate every Gen 7 Pokemon. You should know the drill by now. We're rating all 106 new Pokemon from this generation, including 88 brand new critters and 18 Alolan forms, each of which we'll rate on a scale from 1 to 10. So let's not waste any more time, let's get to the ratings.
Oh, look at this dapper little gentleman. Rowlet may not be an exciting grass starter, few of them are to be fair, but he is distinguished enough to get good marks from me.
I was never the biggest fan of Bird Orb, but it's not bad.
It's just Rowlet, but older, and still a gentleman, which is about what you should expect from a middle starter. Not as big on the colors, but it's not a deal breaker.
Also not a fan of Dartrix. I don't think I was ever really a fan of when the middle starter evolution was a different color combination than the first and last stages.
I actually really love Decidueye. It gets a bit away from the gentlemanly nature and goes for that dashing Robin Hood style, but I actually like that better. And it's a fantastic design either way.
Decidueye has grown on me a lot recently, but I always liked the change from flying to ghost type.
Solid enough cat starter Pokemon, I suppose, but nothing outstanding.
I'm not huge on cats, but this was my starter of choice when I played through Alola for the first and only time.
What if Litten, but Attitude?
This isn't a bad design, but it would suck if Torracat evolved and became bipedal.
Now, most of what I know of Incineroar comes from Smash, where I like playing as him even if he's not one of my favorites. But since we're talking mostly about Pokemon designs here, it's good.
It's not a terrible design, but the proportions remind me a bit too much of Alex from Madagascar, with the oversized front paws.
Cute seals are always going to appeal to me, but it's also interesting to compare this to Seal and Dugong from Gen 1, which are decidedly simpler. Poplio is a good representation, I think, of how Pokemon designs evolve over time.
Okay, before the games came out, I was 100% on Team Poplio for my starter. I mean, look at it, it's a cute circus seal.
Look, we all know where this line is going, but while the next evolution is dicey, to say the least, Brionne is a fantastic middle starter that is beautiful in a lot of ways.
Upon seeing Brionne for the first time, I was distinctly no longer Team Poplio. And remember what I said about middle starters and colors earlier? Yeah, this one is just as bad.
I don't outright hate this evolution like a lot of people do. In fact, I actually really like the idea of a prima donna and distinctly feminine seal Pokemon. My problem is that its features don't gel well together, leaving this Pokemon as a mediocre mishmash.
I don't really dislike Primarina, but it's easily my least favorite final starter evolution of this generation.
Good color scheme, unique bird to draw from, very cute. This is a good Route 1 bird Pokemon.
Here's the standard Route 1 bird. Pikipek isn't all that bad, but I don't know how much I like a standard woodpecker design for a region based off of Pacific Islands.
The same, but bigger and worse.
There's a bit more personality here with Trumbeak, at least compared to Pikipek, but I still think more could have been done.
You know how many Pokemon I've rated that are just straight up drawings of real animals that I've given a good rating because I love the animal in question? Well, guess what? I love toucans, so screw you.
Now, Toucanon I believe to be the best choice for a Route 1 bird for Alola. It's not as amazing as something like Staraptor or Talonflame, but it certainly gets the job done, even if it's not the designated party fly user anymore.
If there was a list of Pokemon I would trust to bring back my lost wallet, this one would be right at the bottom. I do not trust Yungoos. Apologies if that's controversial.
For its distant younger cousin with anger issues. Also, does Cloud make either of the following jokes for Gumshoes? Detective Gumshoe of Ace Attorney, Zenigata of Lupin III, or Donald Trump?
Now Gumshoes I trust implicitly. The stature makes the mon, you know.
Did Cloud make any of those jokes? Well, who cares anyway. Gumshoes isn't too bad, but a bit middling even for a standard Route 1 rodent.
Aside from the bolder colors, this is just a bug. So, you know, meh.
The regular Route 1 bug type. There's a kind of cuteness seen in Pokemon like Caterpie, Wurmple, or Sewaddle that's just kinda missing from Grubbin though.
That's better, but still not outstanding. Also, I'm not sure why, but Charjabug is making me hungry for some Hubba Bubba Max. It's a whole new kind of Buggle.
I never really understood the design of Charjabug. Like, I know it's a battery mixed with a beetle, but it just looks a bit strange to me.
This is far more interesting than it has any right to be. While I'm not in love with Vikavolt's design, it's at least intriguing.
Vikavolt, however, is a stellar design. It's a shame it would take so long to evolve this in Alola. I deposited my Grubbin or Charjabug in the PC well before I reached where I could evolve this.
Did you know that a coconut crab can punch with forces up to 3,300 newtons? That's enough to break your rib. Anyway, I spent like 20 minutes looking that up instead of raiding Crab Brawler because this Pokemon is boring.
The name doesn't lie. It's a Crab Brawler.
What?
Crabominable is pretty goofy, but that's all it really has going for it. And it's also the only new ice type in Alola, but no points for that.
Oh shit, we dancing tonight. All of Oricorio's forms are pretty great, but I'm nominating Sensu Style as my favorite because the Geisha design works really well.
It's pretty good all around. No real bad styles, but I think I like either Bile or Sensu Style the most.
Yeah, I guess Cutie Fly is a cutie fly, but what else it got?
This is a Pokemon that I really have no thoughts about. It's one that just kinda exists for me.
The same, but Butterfly.
At least Rabombi has some sort of emotion and unique aspects of its design, namely the scarf-looking thing.
Solid pupper, but not much else.
Puppy! I like this more than Growlithe, sue me. I think because Growlithe defaults to Angry Puppy, and Rockruff doesn't.
I really like the shaggier fur patterns on Lycanroc, and again, dog Pokemon rule. I actually like Dusk form the most because the orange coat looks really nice.
But I do prefer Arcanine to Lycanroc, though I really love Lycanroc's design as a whole. This might be a mildly hot take, but I prefer Midnight form. The werewolf design just works so well, and because I only played Moon.
Appropriately, I feel pretty wishy-washy on Wishy-Washy. It's not the worst, but it's not very interesting. But I do prefer Solo form because School form looks very dumb.
I would say that this is the useless fish Pokemon we haven't seen since Feebas, but it's not useless and doesn't evolve. Not that it's great, mind you. I think I prefer the School form, since that is at least what makes the Pokemon moderately interesting.
No, thanks.
Marini sure is something, I can tell you that. It's a little goofy looking, but not enough to be charming.
Toxapex looks like it's hiding. Good. Get out of my sight.
Toxapex is a little better at least. And despite all the time I spent playing competitive Pokemon in Gen 7, I never really hated Toxapex in battle.
Okay, so bear with me on this comparison. Mudbray is to real-life donkeys as that Harvest Moon cow is to real-life cows. Does that make sense? Anyway, it's fine.
Mudbray is certainly a donkey. I don't like the eyes though, they creep me out.
Mudsdale is an awesome horse Pokemon, just extravagant enough, but still a majestic creature.
Mudsdale is actually a pretty cool design for a horse, being based off of a Clydesdale and all, and not focusing on a faster breed of horse like Rapidash.
I love the spider with a glassy body concept, but the actual design is just kind of okay.
This looks like a cartoon adaptation of a virus, like from that one episode of Jimmy Neutron.
That's much better. Araquanid takes that same great concept and really cleans it up nicely. Not sure about the bubble knee pads though.
Okay, Araquanid is awesome. I don't really know what it is about this design. Maybe I just like spider Pokemon designs that are more than just spider.
Generic and boring.
I wonder if Game Freak was doing something similar to Bonsly and Sudowoodo with Fomantis and Lurantis, pretending to be bug type in this case. Like, Fomantis? Get it?
Less uninteresting, but also a little worse and way too pink. Also, Lurantis has bacon legs.
But it works better for Sudowoodo. Being a rock type looking like a grass type has its benefits, like avoiding rock's weaknesses and luring in grass's weaknesses. But not so much for being grass and looking like a bug. And dressing like a carny doesn't help.
This sure is a mushroom Pokemon. Yep.
This Pokemon and its design are going to more lull me to sleep.
Actually, the incredibly unnerving stare this thing gives off makes it far more interesting to me, even if I'm still not thrilled with the design.
What has Shiinotic seen? And where can I go to never see Shiinotic or what it has seen ever again?
Nothing much to say about Salandit, I just think it's neat.
It's a pretty fine design, all things considered. And is this the Combee of this generation? 1 in 8 chance to be female, with only females being able to evolve.
Salazzle has enough to bedazzle me thanks to its razzle-dazzle, even though I'm sure some of you are frazzled thanks to its, shapeliness. This entry was really dumb and I apologize.
While it's a fine design, why did they have to try to make this look sexy? The smirk, the eyeliner, and the protruding chest are all too much. At least it was fans that made Gardevoir or Lopunny weird.
Adorable, but do not pet, unless you like broken arms.
Stuffle is a friend-shaped critter, and I think we need more of that in Pokemon.
Hey, this Pokemon wants to give me a hug. Come here, Beware, you're really...
Beware is less friend-shaped than Stuffle, but it doesn't do anything interesting, unfortunately.
Don't worry, I survived. Anyway, generic cute sphere, but it looks happy at least.
It's perfectly fine, but nothing special to me.
Not sure about the garlic pants, but the ballerina design is a nice touch.
Steenie looks like it would show up in a Carmel Danson compilation from 2009.
I'm not going to say what you're thinking about.
Zarina is a decent design, though I think the grape/mixed berry reddish purple is finally off-putting enough for me to make note of it.
Comfey is a great idea for a Hawaiian-inspired location, and I also like how it looks like it's riding its own flower trail.
Comfey's pretty fine, though I thought this was a grass type when I first saw it.
Yeah, Oranguru sure does look wise, but does he know why kids love Cinnamon Toast Crunch?
Kinda funny, but also kinda nothing interesting at the same time.
Ah yes, it's those ancient Hawaiian sports ball monkeys I've heard so much about.
It's a coconut, Luigi. You didn't make it.
Sure looks like a wimp pod to me. Also not a fan of the purple accents.
This little critter is weird, and I don't think I like it.
While I'm not in love with Golisopod, it definitely gets some marks for improving heavily over its pre-evolution.
Golisopod, on the other hand, is fantastic. If Alola had fossils, this would probably have been one. This is peak Armaldo.
I can't explain it, but this one freaks me out for some reason. Love the idea, but the execution doesn't work for me.
Sandygast is pretty silly, just a little dude hanging out on the beach.
That's more like it. Palosand loses that bizarre oddness that Sandygast has, and does a lot more with the concepts, and I like it a lot.
Palosand is phenomenal, and I'm disappointed I didn't know this existed in my playthrough of Moon, as I absolutely would have picked one of these up.
Apparently, this thing inflates its organs out of its body to attack. You can learn more about this by googling Puko-Muko inflation. Warning, do not Google Puko-Muko inflation.
Mom says we have Wobbuffet at home.
I like the idea of an artificially constructed Pokemon looking like someone stuck a bunch of parts together with no rhyme or reason, and while I don't think it fully worked, I think Type Null works alright.
I know it's the entire point of Type Null, but this is just a strange amalgamation of parts that do not look good together. Also, this and Silvally are apparently legendaries? Gotta add them to the awards for that, I guess.
They lost me a bit here. It loses that constructed charm and just looks a little too silly. Like Arceus, a lot of the forms are basically identical, but I like Type Flying the best because Falco Lombardi.
Mom says we have Arceus at home. I want to like this design, but it is literally just unconstrained Type Null. The only stat difference is the speed going from 59 to 95, which I just realized is it being reversed, to match the 95s across the board of its other stats, and it's taller and lighter without its heavy constraints. If we're picking favorite forms, I think Type Poison is the best, since its purple adds some contrast to its color palette without going overboard on either the head fins or the tail.
This little meatball is uninspired as hell. I actually don't like any of the forms on this one. They're like if you put eyeballs on some star bits and called it a day.
I never thought that Pokemon could make a meteor cute, but here we are. I like Purple Core the most, since I think the shade of purple used is a pretty space-like purple.
Yo, they just like me for real.
Komala is alright, though it does have a decent gimmick. Do you think that Komala snores like... or... I think it's a... type of Pokemon.
I cannot believe they got away with calling a Pokemon Turtonator. What's worse, it is the shittiest thing I have seen in a while.
The name alone is something that Professor Doofenshmirtz would invent. Behold, my Turtonator! I am going to turn the entire tri-state area into turtles!
The uneducated would call this the Pikachu clone of this generation, when a true genius knows that this is a Pachirisu clone.
Here we are, folks, the Pikachu clone. And not a bad one at that.
Now here's the Pikachu clone. In all seriousness, I wish that Mimikyu had other forms besides just copying Pikachu, as that would be cool to see a fake version of them. Anyway, I obviously prefer disguised form.
Mimikyu is very funny. Are we counting favorite forms? Busted form is funny, so I guess that one.
No, 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 no. No.
Nope. Who signed off on this design? It's, and I don't use this term lightly, hideous.
780 Pokemon will give you such a crick in the neck. Also, I'm a big fan of Drampaw's flowing locks.
Drampaw's funny, but a bit basic for something you can't find until Victory Road.
Delmai's is pretty sweet. Love the rusty anchor design, and the seaweed dripping off of it is a great touch.
Another amazing ghost type that I didn't know existed until I beat Moon for the first time. Also, I only recently learned that this thing is nearly 13 feet tall. I know it's an anchor, but that just never clicked for me.
I like Jangmo-o, and I don't know why.
Jangmo-o is a decent first evolution for a pseudo-legendary. Cute and tough, but not too over-designed.
I don't like Hakamo-o, and I do know why. Its faces like Aerodactyls and Cubones got scrunched up and made horrible, and also attached to a bad rest of the Pokemon.
I think this is one of the stronger middle evolutions across the pseudo-legendary Pokemon. There's a bit that could be improved, namely around the head, but a solid design.
This thing's got gold chains all up in its business.
I've gone back and forth on Kommo-o's design, but I believe I've settled on, it's a very great design that's unfortunately a bit busy, even if the busyness is integral to the design, with the jangling scales being a bit too much for me.
You know, I think Tapu Koko looks weird, but I kinda like it.
I think Tapu Koko is the strongest design of all the Island Guardians, but I love the shared totem design all of them have, especially Koko's rooster design.
This coconut girl has long pink hair. Since I rated it 3, you'll say it's not fair.
Tapu Lele is fine, but I don't think it's very interesting. I also always forget its butterfly design. The other 3 Tapu inspirations are a lot more obvious.
Mess with the Bulu, you get the Hulu.
It's a bull totem that fits in well with the other Tapus.
No jokes for this one, Tapu Fini is just pretty awesome.
Tapu Fini is a little bit better than Lele, but not by a whole lot. The swordfish design is distinct enough over Lele's butterfly that I can give this the slight edge over it.
If Minior is Gen 7's Starbits, this is Gen 7's Lubba. I will take no further questions.
Yeah, get in the bag, Nebby.
I see you, and I don't care.
Tied for both the smallest and heaviest Pokemon, that's the only interesting thing about Cosmoem. I did not really care too much for the story of the Gen 7 games, or at the very least Lily and Nebby's adventures.
Wow, so Galliol is incredibly badass. I think maybe the white is a little blinding, but it's the fucking sun Pokemon, so it makes sense.
Kimba the White Lion.
Nah, they tried too hard to make Lunala cool and failed miserably.
Lunala is one of the more unique designs for a legendary, and having picked Moon, I'm a little biased towards this than Solgaleo.
What an interesting Pokemon. I sure hope it doesn't fuse with any humans.
This is peak Ultra Beast. Not quite Pokemon, but not Pokemon. Also, that one story battle, you know the one if you've played Sun or Moon. That could have been a great time to have a 7 Pokemon boss battle, akin to Ghetsis in Black and White 2.
This is the greatest thing ever.
Man, this thing is ugly. Like they crossed a mosquito with Machamp.
I don't get this one.
This one just doesn't look good. I don't know what they were smoking when they designed this.
The Pokemon equivalent of chewing electrical wires.
Well, Xurkitree is funny at least. I don't think it's the most Ultra Beast design, but it's close.
I have been really unsure what to think about a lot of Gen 7 Pokemon, and Celesteela is a perfect example. I know I criticized a fair number of older Pokemon for being too simple, but this looks far more intricate than it needs to be, to the point that I don't even know what I'm looking at anymore.
I'm not huge on the design, but it's up there on what an Ultra Beast should be.
But does Kartana know who the Origami Killer is?
Kartana is quite funny, but is also quite a cool design in spite of its funniness.
Step inside the Cave of Wonders and receive your eternal reward. I bet you didn't have Cloud will make 2 Aladdin references on your bingo card for this video, huh? All jokes aside though, Guzzlord is pretty cool. Not a fan. Just looks pretty generic to me. I do prefer Dawnwing's Necrozma because black and blue is once again a fantastic combination.
Necrozma is cool, like a bit unreasonably cool, and despite being all black in its base form, isn't really that edgy. I also think I like base Necrozma the most.
Nah, I prefer the original form because its colors aren't atrocious.
Magearna's fine. Nothing special, but unique enough. I think I like the base color Magearna more. The Pokeball design of original color Magearna doesn't look great with the piss yellow body.
What if Esper, but Hot Topic?
I always imagined Marshadow as a kind of birthday cake candle.
What if Sableye, but Lizard?
A dubious little creature getting up to mischief.
Naganadel is gonna stab you with that needle, so watch yourself.
Naganadel is also peak Ultra Beast, up there with Nihilego.
This is a Guardian from Breath of the Wild.
Stakataka is kinda funny, maybe just a little silly looking, but otherwise isn't anything special to write home about.
I don't care that this is the Fireworks Pokemon and it is a Fire Ghost type. You cannot convince me that this isn't a Lollipop Pokemon. And that's appropriate, because this Pokemon sucks.
This bubblegum dispenser looking fella might be the funniest Pokemon design, at least in this generation. He's so goofy, and he uses his head like a bomb. It's nearly perfect.
After all these generic Pikachu clones, they finally did it. They finally made the Renamon clone.
If Jotaro had a stand called Ride the Lightning, this would be it.
What do you get if you combine a ball bearing, a metal ditto, a red snake, and a golden nut? A not that great Pokemon.
Ditto, if it was bad.
We get it, Melmetal. You lift.
Melmetal is just ugly. I'll give it, like, 1 pity point, because Double Iron Bash is actually a sick name for a signature move.
Rattata? Who is Rattata? My name is Guy Incognitata.
It's not as interesting as Rattata, but it's fine, I guess.
Alolan Raticate can die in a fire.
It's a pudgier Raticate. Faticate.
I don't like the colors, but Raichu surfing on its tail is goddamn sweet.
I wasn't the biggest fan of Raichu, but Alolan Raichu is super cute, and he's tail surfing.
It's cute and all, but I think Alolan Sandshrew pales in comparison to the Kanto Classic.
The Igloo design is very nice, and really fits Sandshrew's new Ice-Steel typing quite well.
By contrast, Alolan Sandslash is actually a nice improvement. The crystals on its back look really awesome.
No pun intended, but this is the cooler Sandslash.
It's a simple change, but it works wonders. Alolan Vulpix is a top-tier redesign.
It's so cute! Look at it, it's got its little boots on and everything. I love Alolan Vulpix, even if it is really just a recolor of regular Vulpix.
I still think Ninetales is a bit overboard, but it is pretty at least.
And Ninetales is even better! The Ice Fox design is just so good.
I do not reward lazy designs here. Go back and try again.
Diglett is just fine. Looks like an Earthbound enemy if anything.
Well, I guess that's better, but it traded in its I'm not doing anything new at all status for being an abomination. Also, how the fuck is Dugtrio gonna develop luscious locks like that while underground?
Dugtrio's hair is funny, but not enough to be any better than Cantonian Dugtrio.
What if Meowth, but he started smoking weed and now won't shut the fuck up about it? Which is a total Meowth thing to do.
The sass is a bit of welcome personality that I expect more in cats, I guess.
I take back what I said about Kanto Persian being just a cat. I kinda prefer that now, knowing that the alternative is this.
Persian is just fine. I don't care for the chubby face compared to the rest of the body being nearly identical to normal Persian, however.
In case you couldn't tell that Geodude had an epic eyebrow game, here's literal rock eyebrow so you know that he's got the stare.
Yeah, it's just more Geodude, I guess. And I wasn't really a fan of Geodude to begin with.
Sorry, I just don't have that much to say about these can I copy your homework, sure just change some words designs. I don't like it.
Nor was I really a fan of Graveler. They didn't even change the color from Kanto either.
If I had a nickel for every Alolan Pokemon that grew an inexplicable mustache, I'd have 2 nickels. Which isn't a lot, but it's weird that it happened twice.
Alolan Golem is at least kinda interesting with the whole magnet thing going on.
It's Slimer!
Oh, now it's green sludge. How intimidating.
It's disgusting!
Although I'm not really a fan of Cantonian Muck, Alolan Muck's multicolored design is actually really nice.
I know this was the big meme Alolan form, but you know what? I'll say it, this is genuinely very clever.
It's funny, but I don't like it any more than Cantonian Exeggutor.
I've been very harsh on the Alolan forms, but I am very happy to end on 2 perfect designs. Alolan Marowak is an absolutely fantastic and striking Pokemon to end on.
It's a simple change, but a really effective one. As a plus, it's just flat out cooler.
And that's every Gen 7 Pokemon rated. Now let's hear the usual rundown from Dribson.
Thanks, Cloud. As usual, let's first look at the running total of our average scores. Cloud's average total was his lowest to date, only scoring a 5.86 average. His average for new Pokemon was 5.93, while his average for Alolan forms was a 5.50. So while there were a few Alolan forms that he loved, it's clear that the ones he hated, plus his general apathy for the newer Pokemon, did this generation in. On the other hand, my average total was a 6.37, which puts this in the middle of my list. I gave the new Pokemon an average of 6.25, and the Alolan forms an average of 6.94, so it's clear that both Cloud and I viewed this lineup very differently. Of all 106 new Pokemon and forms from this generation, we gave 19 of them the same rating, and this time, it was split pretty evenly between Pokemon we liked and disliked. Next, let's look at our total score count from Gen 7, which has the trends you might expect. Cloud hovered around the 4 to 7 range, rarely stepping outside those numbers. I was more generous overall, handing us scores mostly in the 5 to 9 range, but there were still quite a few stinkers on my end as well that lowered my average a bit.
Thanks, Dribson, and now it's time to honor the richest, the poorest, and the middle classiest Pokemon from Gen 7. First, there's the awards for best and worst starters based on the combined score of all Pokemon in the evolution line. The Perfect Partner Award goes to the Incineroar line by a single point, and it was mostly its consistency through the whole chain that gave it the edge. And the Atrocious Ally Award goes to the Primarina line, which is certainly not a terrible starter by any means, but lost quite a bit of luster along the way.
Next, let's hand out the awards for Best and Worst Legendary, based on their combined score. As a reminder, both Legendary and Mythical Pokemon are eligible for this award, but in Gen 7's case, the Ultra Beasts don't count. Don't worry though, they're getting their own award. For now, the Mythical Masterpiece Award goes to 3 Legendaries, and funnily enough, they're 3 Guardians: Tapu Koko, Tapu Bulu, and Tapu Fini. No disrespect to Tapu Lele, who couldn't be here today on account of not being as good, but these 3 have some very memorable, if similar, designs. And the Fantastical Flop Award goes to Melmetal. It's pretty cool that Pokemon Go was the debut of a brand new Pokemon, but honestly, this one's just too confused for its own good.
Moving on to the awards for best and worst type, calculated by finding the average score of every Pokemon in that type group. Our excellent element for Gen 7 is Ice, which has come close to winning so many times, so it's nice to see it finally take the gold. And the catastrophic category this time is Dark, which previously was the best type in Gen 2, but has been up and down since then, with this outing being particularly gruesome.
Now there's the awards for Best and Worst Glow Up, done by finding the best and worst changes in combined score from one Pokemon to another in its evolution line. The Terrific Transformation Award goes to Palisand, who made a very substantial 9-point leap over its predecessor, mostly because Cloud found it to be a major improvement. And keeping it form for us, the Metamorphic Mistake Award goes to Brion. This is the 3rd time in a row that the middle starter in our collective least favorite starter line took the Metamorphic Mistake Award. And as Cloud is writing this part of the script, he wants it to be known that this award is entirely my fault, as Cloud's score between Popplio and Brion did not change. And unlike the last 2 times, Primarina didn't snag the opposite distinction. In fact, they actually did a little worse.
Let's transition to the Pokemon that Dribson and I disagreed on the most, and we've got 2 to honor this time, Minior and Buzzwole. The former I hated and Dribson really liked, and the latter Dribson didn't like and I adored. So do with that information as you will.
And then we have the awards for the best and worst antagonists, which includes rivals, gym leaders, Elite Four trainers, champions, and villain team leaders based on the average score of their teams. As per usual, we're not counting duplicate Pokemon, only final encounters are judged where applicable, trainers must have at least 1 new Pokemon, super bosses only count if they're fought in the post-game, and no battle facility exclusive trainers. For Gen 7, we decided to split the awards again, so both Sun and Moon and Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon will get their own sets of champions and anti-champions. Like with Gen 5, trainers aren't eligible to receive the same award twice, which is important as a lot of trainers span across both titles. For Sun and Moon, the Big Bad Boss Award goes to Professor Kukui if he has a Decidueye on his team. You don't get to fight the Pokemon professors that often, and Kukui does pretty well across all of his potential teams. Not to mention the champion of the region taking the spot, which is just appropriate. This is a great example of how our favorite starter line doesn't always indicate the best starter Pokemon, because while we rated the Incineroar line the highest on average, Decidueye clinched it for Kukui. Also shoutouts to Lusamine, who was a very close second place. And the Bad Bad Boss Award goes to the Aether Foundation's Faba. Not only does this guy look like a dork, but he weighed himself down heavily with his Hypno and especially his Bruxish. For the Ultra games, the Big Bad Boss Award goes to Trial Captain Kiawe, who did well in Sun and Moon, but seriously improved himself by, evolving his Pokemon. And honestly, any trainer with a Growlithe on his team is gonna score high in our books. And the Bad Boss Award, well, technically it would go to Faba again because he mistakenly thought switching out his Slowbro for a Claydol would win him more points. It didn't, and he actually did worse, but again, he can't win this award twice. So it actually goes to Hala, who lost a bit of favor when they stripped his Elite Four status away. Still, he got nearly 4 points ahead of Faba, so I think we can all agree that Faba is the real loser here.
Before we head to the wrap-up, we have 2 special awards to hand out for Gen 7. First are the awards for Best and Worst Alolan form, and for the Awesome Alolan award, we're giving it to Vulpix and Marowak, who were both just shy of a perfect score, but still absolutely nailed the redesign. And the Awful Alolan award also goes to 2 Pokemon, Raticate and Graveler. Let this be a lesson: growing inexplicable facial hair and inflating your cheeks aren't good ways to get high honors on our list.
And our last awards of the night are the awards for the Best and Worst Ultra Beasts, as we wanted to give them their own category. Our Unbeatable Ultra Award recipient is Nihiligo, whose ephemeral and beautiful design won us over. And the Unacceptable Ultra Award goes to Pheromosa, a design that both of us thought was trying too hard.
Finally, let's bring it on home with the special honors. The Hall of Fame hosts Pokemon with the best possible score of 20, but none of the Pokemon got that score this time. The Hall of Shame is for Pokemon with the worst possible score of 2, and Bruxish fits right at home in this burning sewer. And the Hall of Tame contains Pokemon with the middlest possible score of a 5 from us both, and we've got 3 inductees: Primarina, Fomantis, and Bonsweet. Alright, that's everything we've got for Gen 7, and as a quick recap, here's all of our ratings for this generation. I've been very curious about this generation since it hit store shelves, but I still haven't picked the games up to try them out. Clearly, I viewed the actual Pokemon from these games a little harshly, and while I respect quite a few of these designs, there are plenty that rubbed me the wrong way. That's especially true of the Alolan forms, which were such a curious mishmash that either knocked it out of the park, or seriously lost sight of what these Pokemon should be. I appreciate that the designers wanted to go beyond typical Pokemon character traits and experiment a bit, but in my opinion, I don't think it worked that well on the whole. Yet for every misstep this generation takes with its new pocket monsters, and it does take quite a few, there are plenty of Pokemon in Gen 7 that I really enjoyed. And for all my negative aspersions on these creatures, I still really want to give the games a shot one of these days, as I've heard plenty of good things.
Generation 7 is one of the Pokemon gens I have the most conflicting thoughts about. On one hand, I think that Sun and Moon are some of the best games in the series, decently difficult, a more than basic story, and hints of trying something different in place of the 8-gem structure. On the other hand, I initially dropped this game a few hours into the story, right before meeting Guzma for the first time, since I just wasn't enjoying it at the time. And the Ultra games were the first Pokemon titles I didn't play ever until getting a bit of footage for them for this video. I've played at least one version of every game since Gen 3, Ruby and Sapphire, Emerald, Fire Red, Diamond, Platinum, Soul Silver, White, White 2, Y, Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, and Moon. But I never cared enough about Gen 7 at the time to pick up either of the Ultra games. Looking back now, while I don't think I missed much, and I think the Ultra games are generally considered better overall, I do think that Gen 7 is one of the better gens, and probably the best of the 3D mainline Pokemon games, barring Legends Arceus, but that's for next video.
With all that said, if you like this video, give it a like and subscribe to see more Pokemon rating vids. And leave a comment below telling us what your favorite Gen 7 Pokemon is. We are nearly at the end of our rating journey, as we only have Generation 8 to look at in full, and then we'll be revisiting Gen 9 with all the DLC Pokemon added. Until that time, this is CloudConnection and Dribson signing off. Catch you later!